thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to everybody today. I've had a really great time over the last day and a half. Interacting with all of you has been so educational. And I know I have some tips to share today, but quite honestly, I think I've gained so much over the last day and a half, and just thanks so much for Replicant for hosting it and for you guys sharing. Real quick about me and ECSI, the company I work for. So ECSI started out as an entrepreneur's mission 50 years ago, 1972, as a way of assisting colleges and universities in managing the service and the processing and the operations in their businesses so they could focus on what they're good at, which is academics and students' education. Since 1972, ECSI has grown in size. We serve about 1,500 different colleges and universities throughout the country. And we've seen all kinds of issues that they deal with and problems that they've had, and we've been very privileged to help them, assisting students through their educational journey. There's two things in my job that I do. You know, my title is Senior Director of Operations, but really what I do every day is I've got this obsession with efficiency. How are we going to squeeze more juice out of the orange every day? And employee engagement. I really want to create a culture where people are excited and happy to come to work and feel like we listen, care, and include them as part of our team. And automation has actually fit into both of these categories, and I'm going to explain how. But anyway, I just want to start with where did we start and where are we today to kind of give you a reference point of what we've done in the last year and a half. I'm going to go back to 2019. This was pre-pandemic. And we had the same challenges that all of you have had with staffing, with training, with retention, filling our growing customers' demands, those kind of things. And just like a lot of you, we pulled every trick out of the old call center trick book that has ever been tried and tried all kinds of different things from a pre-automation perspective. And we got the usual results. We knew that something had to change because our industry was evolving and we needed to evolve with it. We weren't really quite sure what that meant at the time, but I don't know if you saw Xennial's logo up there. Xennial is also part of the group of businesses that ECSI belongs to under Global Payments. They had already reached out to Replicant ahead of us and has some progress and was sharing that story. We thought, well, maybe this is the answer, this automation thing, artificial intelligence. Let's learn more about that. So we started down this path, just educating ourselves of what is possible and what's not possible. Well, fast forward to 2020, all things changed, right? Our world was just changed immediately. We had the same problems as everybody. Here's the pandemic. Our new normal is never been mapped before. All of a sudden, we are working from home. We're dealing with COVID cases, getting vaccinations, getting people set up, communicating with their clients under extreme duress. We had all these challenges. But what we knew was that there was help out there. We had already started talking with our Replicant vendor and said, here's the new challenge. What can you do to help us? We have 3 thinking machines. So we have different product lines that we offer to support universities. One's called tax, one's called refunds, and one's called loan servicing. 3 of our 7 core businesses. And those are the 3 thinking machines we have today. We actually started a year and a half down this path. Well, about a year ago, we finished implementation of the thinking machines, and we wanted to use that as kind of the starting point. Where are we now that we're going live with these robots, right? So we compared ourselves to 2021 summer to this year, 2022 summer. And we picked summer because it is the busiest time of year for ECSI. If there's going to be 3 months out of the year that's just all going to be chaos, it's those 3 months. Well, if you look at these numbers, a year ago, when we went live with the thinking machines, our average speed of answer was about 35 minutes. Pretty bad in a contact center, any contact center, when you have thousands of people calling you and needing help. If you fast forward a year, a lot has changed for us. Our average speed of answer for people is 6 minutes now. And there's a story behind how that happened. There's this dramatic change. And I'm going to explain what happened, but before I do that, I think it's important to note 2 key things. Our volume actually went up. So while our average speed of answer went down, our volume went up 7% year over year. But most importantly, we looked at well, are we spending more or are we saving? Our costs, our all-in costs for technology and labor went down almost 14%. So volume's up 7, cost is down 14. We consider that a real win. And there were several things that happened there. You talked about containment rate. What are the bots actually doing for us? 25% of our calls were fully contained this past summer, meaning the thinking machines did it all. They took the call, listened to the borrowers and students that were calling in, solved their problem, resolved the problem, and fully contained the issue. The rest of the calls that transferred to people, something that a student just wanted to talk to somebody about, 65% of those calls were actually reduced in length of time. Our handle time went from about 6.5 minutes last year to 5.5 minutes this year. And there's a lot of reasons why that happened, I'll explain, but it's more of the triage that the thinking machines did for us. And then the third thing that happened was the business intelligence. You heard the Replicant team talking about the analytics. Well, this tool gave us a lot of insight onto where exactly to look for threats and opportunities and what we should do. Much better than what we were doing in the past. We were able to hone in on things that were causing traffic and areas where if we change something on our mobile app or our website would probably be of service to our borrowers and students that they wouldn't have to call us as much. Today, because of this success, we're all in. I think some of the biggest wins is that when we go through our budgeting season right now, we don't plan on bringing seasonal staff in for 2023. We have enough momentum gained from our thinking machines that it's filling these staffing gaps and the seasonal demand that this will be the first time we never have to depend on seasonal labor. We consider that a real win for us. But I think more importantly is that it's created new career paths for our people. I know many of you have talked about, well, what does this mean as next steps for your staff? For us, it's given us a little bit of breathing room where we can take our people and put them on career tracks where they're learning about process design, customer interactions, client relationships, not necessarily those tier 1 phone calls anymore, but they're able to participate with our vendors in building new services for our clients where they didn't have time before. And so that's just going to open up more opportunities for us. And then when we think about 12 months from now, just based on the momentum and the success we've had, we really believe that all areas of our business, not just service, will be affected by artificial intelligence, whether it's conversational AI or something else in the future where all of us have some kind of augmentation happening that allows us to be better at our jobs. So that's really our timeline. But today I wanted to talk about just 7 quick steps of things we've learned along the way, some successes, some failures, and just some best practices. But there's 4 things I always tell people before I get into that we had to answer for ourselves, 4 assumptions that I make. And the first one is that before you start this process, you've identified what is success. What does success look like to you? And it's very important to answer that. Is it faster time to answer your phone? Is it faster production? Is it higher quality? Is it better employee engagement? What is it? Because first of all, that's going to tell you where to make your investment financially. And second, it's going to tell you where to focus your attention. Because there's going to be a lot of moving parts if you're new to this. And it's difficult to do it all at the same time. It's possible, but it's difficult. So I ask people, identify what does success look like for you? What is the outcome you're trying to achieve? And that helps you get to a good starting point of where to focus your money and attention. And the second one is that you have confirmed that automation is a good fit for your business. We talked about this earlier this morning where understand the difference between tactical and relational work, meaning if I'm ordering a pizza online for dinner, that's a very tactical, routine process, right? I don't really need to talk to somebody to order a pizza with extra cheese. If I'm an affluent person who's interested in better investing strategies, I'm probably not going to talk to a conversational bot about that. I want to talk to a professional who has that frame of reference and can give me some great ideas about what to do. So there's the difference, right? Am I solving tactical problems or am I building relationships with people? AI is fantastic at tactical, not so good at relational as of today. Third, and this is going to sound really obvious, but hear me out, is the cost analysis. So the very first thing my boss asks is how much? Okay, he wants to know, what's our ROI? How much are you going to spend and what am I going to get in return? Great question. That's the hard ROI, the dollars and cents. That's just the math. But think there's a second part to this, right? It's the soft ROI. There's things that are more intangible. So your customer surveys, your employee engagement. Automation does fit into those, but it's a little difficult to show the dollars of that sometimes. So understand both. What is it you're trying to achieve and what will be success? And then from an investment perspective, what are you trying to gain? And put that into the terms of hard or soft ROI. For us, it was both. We want it all. We wanted to save money, but we also wanted employees to be happy, our clients to be happy, and surveys to look good. And then finally, is to just understand what type of AI you're going to use. So this whole conference is about conversational AI. It's that dialogue between machine and person, right? But when you start to learn about artificial intelligence, there's actually a lot more going on. There's different genres of AI. At ECSI, we use RPA, robotic process automation. We use OCR, so optical character recognition, and conversational AI. And those are just three of the different technologies. Don't get confused, right? Just educate yourself on what those things are, what they can do for you, and where do they fit into your business. So I'm only saying this so you don't waste your time and your money and your focus on something that's really ultimately not going to get you to where you want to be. For us, it was an educational path that we took to understand where do these all fit in. So just moving forward to our 7 tips. The first one for me was to educate yourself. For me, this is very important because I'll give you an example. This really happened just this morning. I was on LinkedIn and the article said, I'm paraphrasing, marketing hype is a disease in the artificial intelligence industry. And the point of the article is that there's going to be a lot of vendors that you're going to run into, a lot of people trying to sell something, and there's a lot of hype. And if you're not aware of what's fact and fiction, it's easy to fall into this trap of that sounds really cool, and I want that, and you buy it and then find out it's not exactly going to do what you thought it was going to do. So when I say educate yourself, what I'm specifically talking about is don't go to the vendors, no offense to Replicant, but go to things like this where I can talk to you face to face, people who are doing this on a ground level and tell me this is working, this is not working, this is kind of working, and here's what I suggest. That's going to be invaluable to you. There's other resources. You know, you can do webinars, seminars, but by far for us, talking to people like this group, people who are actually involved in it was invaluable, just to explain what is fact and fiction. I will tell you, for me personally, I went to some classes online through MIT. The reason I did that was because they're artificial intelligence in business focused. And these are people who are not trying to sell me anything at all. These are people who are actually building this technology and are going to give it to you straight. So just find those resources that aren't trying to sell you something, right? And understand what can and can't happen. Second tip is starting small. So some of us have already started and we're in different areas of progression in our journey, but some have not. For either one of those groups, my suggestion is to start small. And here's why. I think there's a lot of opportunities to kind of put your foot in the door, so to speak, without making a major investment and build on small wins. So for example, I'll use just the contact center as an example. If you take a call from hello to goodbye, there's a process. There's things that we do on every call. There could be documentation. There could be follow-up. There could be more research. There could be all kinds of different things that are needed to complete that transaction from hello to goodbye. Well, what we did was just take our call, break it down into 30 separate parts, and say this part could be automated. This one needs a person, automated person, and start there. And you're going to find that there's actually a lot of opportunity to just start small and start to pick apart seconds in the actual call. So in our example, authentication. I heard many people talk about authentication. We need to prove that you are who you are. Our thinking machine is able to authenticate about 80% of the people who call. Well, that used to be a completely human interaction. Today, we have a machine doing that for us, and that saves lots of time. And there's others examples. You know, we talked about texting. If you needed to text some links or information, a person used to do that for you. Now a machine can do it. If you want to send a link to a form, or we talked about flex forms yesterday, that's an option. If you want the machine to update notes on your CRM, that's an option. All these things can happen without human interaction, and it frees them up to do the things that are important, which is building that relationship and really providing good service. Earlier today, we talked about the transaction from machine to person. So there's going to be times when it's going to escalate. There's something the bot can't handle. And how does that process go? Well, does it cost time? Does it cost money? The answer is yes. You're losing time when I have to transfer. But I want to give you an example of what our screen pop looks like. So here's how we solve this problem. I know it's small, but I'm going to walk you through what this is. When we've authenticated somebody, the thinking machine makes a record of that. And when it has to escalate to a person, it's going to give you the information it's already collected. So I'm an agent. I don't need you to tell me all over again what it is that you want, who you are, and all these different things. In our case, this information here costs an agent about 45 to 60 seconds, right? So what we do is we pre-populate this form, and it's going to tell you basically, and again, this is all fake information, in case anybody's taking a picture of this, who they red flagged, in our case, authentication. Are they signed up for automatic billing? Are we allowed to give them a call on their cell phone? What is it that caused the escalation? All these things. Just check the CRM. Here's all the things that an agent should do, but I've done it for you in advance. You can just start the conversation. I don't need any more information. Just pick it up where you start, where you left off with the machine. So again, think about this from a dollars and cents perspective. And you're thinking small. You think small, well, what does that mean financially for us? If we're going to take 1.2 million calls this year, 45 seconds times 1.2 million calls for loan servicing is a ton of hours. And so right out of the gate with this small program, we're able to save 2 full-time people's salary. So I like to call it my $100,000 screen pop, because my all-in cost for a tier 1 agent is $50,000. We save enough time for 2 people. The next one is just to get started now. And so here's what I mean by this, is that this technology is evolving so fast. And I just mentioned to somebody this morning, it seems like every month something new is happening or improving, and we're always catching up. We feel like we're in a good place, but there's just something new to remember. I think why it's important to understand what's possible and not possible and to start now is because a couple things. No matter what industry you're in, we're all providing some kind of service. And expectations from people in general have been raised because you've got big guys in service, like Amazon, for example, who provide great service, and it sets a bar. It sets this expectation that we should all be like that. We should all have the people and the resources and the money and the time that the big guys have. Well, I don't. I'm this compared to Amazon, right? So we need to find a way that's going to kind of level the playing field. And for us, it's the artificial intelligence, conversational AI. I can provide the same kind of service that the big guys do. I'm open 24/7. I can answer most of your calls before you even have to talk to somebody. I can answer the call every single time you call, and there is no waiting to talk to a machine. So we have these tools that really have put us here. But the point I want to make is that the longer you wait, there's going to be people in your industry who are going to get started. And those are the people who you really need to be concerned about. And if they put these tools in place and you don't, they're going to run right past you. I can tell you in my small group of businesses, I'm constantly approached by, how did you do that? How did you get the budget? Who do you know? I don't know anybody. I know this thinking machine thing that is moving that much faster. So my point is just start small, start somewhere, start now. And if you really have nothing to go with to start, my best advice is just create the blueprint. If you were going to start, what does that look like? You've talked to everybody, you've decided what you're going to do, you wrote the blueprint, this is the steps we're going to take, and be ready to go when the opportunity presents itself. Understanding your business is very important because, I'll just use Replica as an example, they're very good at this artificial intelligence thing. I'm not, but they didn't know anything about loan processing and tax refunds, right? We had to educate each other. But before I could teach them exactly what we do, we needed to make sure that we were doing exactly the right things. So we had our subject matter experts leave their jobs, rewrite all of our material, or at least audit it to make sure that, yes, this is exactly how we will run our business. This is exactly what you do in this circumstance. And so we could take this documentation along with our experts and say to the engineers, this is what we want the robot to do. We look at the robot as a brand new employee. It's smart, it's fast, it's energetic, it has all the things we would hire for, right? It doesn't know anything about my business. That's my job to teach it. And if my documentation, if my people aren't doing or saying or acting the right way, how could I expect the robot to do that? So we made sure our own house was clean before we turned that over to Replicate and started to train them. We'll share this real quick with you. We had 2 guys in our contact center. They both happened to be named Corey, so they quickly got this nickname, the Coreys. And they were our subject matter experts. 2 kids, I can say, I'm 50, so I can say 25-year-old people or kids. They're people with promise, right? Really great live chat agents, knew our business inside and out, could solve all the problems, on a really good career track. We said, hey, we have this project we'd like you to weigh in on and help our vendor. Would you be willing to do that? They were all for it. They had the technical ability. So we took them out of production, but I got challenged. Why on earth would you take our 2 best people and hand them over to Replicant? And I said, just bear with me, there's gonna be a payoff. And I go back to our summer metrics that bought that 25% container. It was 21 people's worth of work. So I traded some of their time and gained over essentially 20 reps to do work on our program. So well worth the investment. Moving on is just to engage your employees. We talked about this one yesterday and this morning. Very, very important to me is that keeping your employees part of this process is critical to their buy-in for a number of reasons. Artificial intelligence is still kind of an area where people aren't as educated and they're kind of scared of it sometimes. You would think the automatic question is, well, are you bringing this robot in to replace our jobs? Well, we certainly weren't. We're here to educate, not replace. So from the very beginning, we included our entire staff in focus groups. We were very transparent of why we were going down this path, what was in it for them, and what the outcomes were to be expected. We actually got a lot of great ideas from our staff. I mean, no brainer, right? Including them in. They had lots of suggestions. Well, did you think about this or that? Can your new robot do this or that? It was really good insight. But the question was, well, okay, it's all said and done. You've got your people engaged. What was the net result? How was the transition? I often say you have to go back to 2020. I think almost everybody in this room will remember March 2020. We talked about Magic Gates yesterday. My Magic Gates, March 20th, 2020, when it all just fell apart, right? There was desperation. There was way more work and not enough people, and it was overwhelming. And so we had that to contend with, but because we involved people in the solution, they welcomed it with open arms. They were excited. We didn't care where the help was coming from. You could call a robot, a person, whatever, we'll take it. But it was just a much easier transition by including the staff and getting their feedback. Just moving on is to staff appropriately. Here's one we learned really quick, is it's hard to find people who know what they're doing in AI. So we went down this path and we thought, well, we're gonna have to hire somebody. We don't know how to do all this. Yeah, we've got this vendor, but on our side, do we need to have engineers? Do we need to have help, analysts, whatever? So we reached out to recruiters and agencies, talent search, and said, here's what we think we need. Where are these people and how much do they cost? Well, first of all, we found out this is an emerging field. Not too many people really know at an expert level how to manage these programs. And if you do find them, be ready to pay, because it's like any emerging technology that has very few people in it, it's gonna cost you a lot in salary. And we realized immediately this is out of our reach. So our alternative, which actually worked out very well, was look internally. I like to call our staff people with promise. You are great at your job, but you know what? You could do a whole lot more. And we've identified them and put them on a career track. We went immediately to those people with promise. And again, I mentioned our Corys. We actually have a Dane as part of the Corys. Now it's a Corey Dane. But we looked at those guys and said, you know, you could do this. We're going to send you to school. We're going to get you in the webinars. We're going to have you talk to our peers. We're going to get you immersed in all of this. And I want you to learn and grow and tell me what you need. So we kind of self-educated with our own people. And it's worked out tremendously. They've done extremely well in partnering with the Replicant team and moving us forward. I will tell you this, I haven't told the Replicant people there, but they're about to hear it now. I also told them one other thing. I said, when you're working with these Replicant people, here's what I want you to do. And I went back to my childhood. I remembered how poor we were. And when mom and dad would hire a repair person to come to the house, they'd follow him around with a notepad and pencil and write down everything he was doing. And I later learned it's because they wanted to know how to fix it themselves the next time. They didn't have to call the repair guy, right? So I told the Corys, get a pencil and a pad, and whatever they do, write it down. Whatever they say, write it down. If you don't understand it, Google it. Ask them questions. Do whatever they're doing and at least try to understand how they do their jobs. You guys are safe. We don't know how to do your jobs yet, but it certainly has been very educational in helping them just do better with our program. And finally is to understand there's two facets to conversational AI through this particular tool. One is I call it the brains and the brawn. The brawn is it's going to move super fast. It's not going to make a mistake once you've trained it appropriately. You're never going to miss a call. It just works relentlessly. It's fact rate. So production is a no-brainer. But the second part is the brains. So the engineers are calling it analytics or business intelligence, whatever. It is ultra efficient. I like to say it tells on itself. It tells when it has failed. It has had to escalate a call. It couldn't answer the question. It identified a problem. We keep getting calls after calls about this. And it gives us this analytics and reporting that says, here's where the problems are, go fix it. Could be our mobile app, could be the website, could be our process, could be our old-fashioned IVR we're still using, whatever. It tells us where to look. And it saves us hours of trying to solicit from our staff. What are you hearing? What are people complaining about? Where should we be looking? Really quick example was our world is very regulated through the federal government. There's a lot of compliance issues. One of the things we had to do was put an 800 number on the top right of our website, and the marketing team just picked one. We have 7 of them. They just picked one and put it on the website. It was our loan servicing number. Well, all of a sudden, everybody started calling this number, but we didn't know it. Our reps didn't say anything. It just seemed like business issues. Oh, yeah, another person in the wrong queue. Just go about my day, right? But think about how many hours of labor are involved in finding out you're in the wrong queue. I got to get you the person with the right skill set. Well, the first time we used this business intelligence tool, we said, wait a minute, 5,000 people got transferred to a different queue last month. What's that about? You got the wrong number on your website. So we immediately fixed that one. But 5,000 times before we heard about this, no human told us this. So there's a small example of the brains of this tool. So keep that in mind as you're building it. You want to know what you don't know. So there is one bonus tip. Again, very important to me, is that bots are not going to replace you. They're not going to replace people. From my perspective, I don't know that ever happens. But what I mean is there's going to be things it's really good at and things it's not. Because it does all the tactical, routine, mundane stuff that we don't want to do anyway, it allows us to be creative. It allows us to build relationships. It allows us to focus on new business. And that's certainly been the case with us. So keep in mind, particularly when you're talking to your staff or you're building the process, it's not about replacing people. It could be about reducing costs or being more productive, but that doesn't mean less people. It means now you have the time to do the things we were always supposed to do. And that's build relationships with our clients and just do that much more business. Anyway, thank you for listening. Really appreciate your